iFanboy's coverage of the New York Comic Con is brought to you by Seagate, the storage of choice for creative professionals.
I'm here with Rick Remender, and it seems to be pretty good to be in the Rick Remender business these days, eh?
Yeah, it's all right. It's an all right
We get to
thing.
your table, and there's a line wrapped around the Artist Alley area,
Yep.
and it's you are Mr. Uncanny Avengers now.
Yeah, I am. That's my changed my name and everything.
Legally, yeah.
I hope that doesn't bite me later.
So the
This
book,
is going to be forever, right, guys? Yay!
a new Social Security card. Okay.
That would be great. I was trying to think of. Go on. Let's just.
So the issue came out this past before the con. Everybody's here. They got it. They got one of 90 million covers. How has the reception been to the flagship title of Marvel now? You were the leader of the pack.
It's been great, you know, and my nerves were shot when I found out because I didn't know it was going to be what it was. You know, when I was pitching it and putting it together as an idea, I thought it would just be this quirky thing that was never done and would be fun. And characters, I love the Avengers, I love the X-Men, and I had a million ideas bubbling up all of a sudden, you know, and I had no idea. So then you write it and you get going, and you're working with a genius like John Cassaday and Laura Martin and Chris Eliopoulos, and you got the team, and that's the team that Joss had on a stunt. I mean, like
It's got parallels.
And look, I mean, I work with some supremely dope scientists, but they're usually friends, so there's no intimidation factor. And I can call them and go, "You really fucked up panel 7, shithead." And they're like, "Why is there a panel 7? It's too much." But the thing starts getting promoted, and you realize, oh shit. And then the numbers come in, and it's like their best-selling book in forever. And then you're like, well, I don't really hope people like this. This is no longer just like a thing that I wanted to do. It's my career on the line.
I wasn't aware of the importance of it.
Well, it does.
If I had known, I would have done it differently.
Yeah, I wouldn't have. I hacked that shit out. I would have really tried harder. No, I mean, I gave it my all, but it still was. So, the anxiety leading up to it was awful. But and then the 2 days that it's released, you check the internet every once in a while, and slowly your anxiety depletes as you go, okay, people liked it.
Yep.
Oh. Now, if they continue to like it, remains to be seen.
Well, yeah.
So my new anxiety the anxietyometer will reach new heights.
Just get a momentary reprieve, and then
It is a wonderful momentary reprieve, though, and the reaction at the show has been great, and so yeah.
Well, I mean, I thought it was interesting because you were challenged with kind of picking up the pieces from AVX ending, and at the same time being said that this is a book people can jump onto.
Right.
So how do you big, huge continuity, 6-month event thing, new readers? How do you balance that?
Yeah, what I do is I write it without any mind for page count.
Yeah.
I just write it.
Yeah.
And it came out to 38 pages, which I did not have. And I do that with most books now, and they'll come to 28 or 29, and then you whittle it out, and you find ways to mix scenes. And I think it's good because it gives you the same amount of story. It's all still in there, but it's just been kind of compacted.
Yeah.
So I did that in a way where I hopefully, caught people up in interesting snippets, like, the funeral for Xavier, Scott and Alex in the prison cell. So where it seems like natural dialogue and you're hopefully enjoying it, but it's also exposition, and that's obviously the dancing act with any of those scenes.
Right.
So it should catch you up on the context of Scott and Alex, the context between where Logan is hopeless. He feels like he failed Chuck, and let's face it, he failed Chuck. Yeah. And he says it at his eulogy, so hopefully it's got a, cow. And that's obviously a big part of the arc that we're going to be playing with him and stuff. So it's taken the 38 pages, and then I just spent weeks whittling it down. And, Tom and I would talk about it, and we would do things like take the funeral and start intermingling it with Scott and Alex in jail, so that it starts back and forth cutting. And little tricks like that where you can take a 10-page sequence and make it 5. And then the whole avalanche going nuts thing goes from 8 pages into 4. And hopefully you can get the same information and everybody's caught up. So, but it's challenging because you don't want it to read like, Well, remember when Scott became Phoenix and bad things happened? Yes, Captain America. And you also had an AVX experience with Iron Man, didn't you?
Remember that time?
Right. Avoiding exposition and still getting that information across, that's the hardest. Like the fireworks, the drama, everything else, it's that kind of shit that...
Well, especially being such a Claremont kind of acolyte as you are. I mean, but the thing is, you're kind of starting, to a certain degree, while it's not a reboot, you're starting from a certain fresh point. So now you're building your own, storylines to layer. That,
yeah. I did take it that was the responsibility that I had, that this is a book that has to be equal parts X-Men and Avengers.
Yeah.
And that's why I think people got excited about it. And when you see the plans we have coming up, Red Skull's involvement with the apocalypse stuff, bleeding out of X-Force, Kang's involvement in it all of by issue 20, we're blowing up the Marvel universe. I mean, now it doesn't have to be in an underground bunker where X-Force is like, I hope this doesn't leave the bunker. This shit is it's the big
Central Park.
It's the big show.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun, and but yeah, so the A and the X was that was the responsibility in my mind, that both of those things felt balanced and that it was a new thing, while at the same time you read it and you're like, this feels like a classic Avengers comic. Now it feels like a classic X-Men comic.
So in terms of working with Cassidy, how has that been? I mean, he's been away from interiors for a while now. There's no scene that comes back that you're disappointed with. There's things that I'm nervous about when I write it. Obviously, a lot of writing is nerves. You start with a ball of shit of ideas and you spend weeks whittling it into something that you think is good. Rewrite, but you're never quite sure. When a John Cassidy page comes back, you're like, oh well, I'm clearly a genius. I told John Cassidy to draw a wonderful thing. He's an amazing storyteller, and the stuff is so clean. Yeah. It's all there, but he's just got such a he doesn't messy things up. It's a very minimalistic style, while it's all represented in his emotion. Yeah. That shot where Logan says we failed Chuck and he turns his head and he walks away, I'm like, that's Wolverine, that's it, and that's why I'm doing this. The single tear when Mariko left him on the altar, right?
It is. And then the 12-year-old is like, yeah, you did it, it wasn't a waste of time, you giant fat nerd.
So you said come issue 20, you blow everything up. Are you taking the same approach you did with X-Force? Do you know where the story is and how long it goes, and in all of its quadruple shipping and all that?
Well, it's not. Well, for now, we're monthly.
Oh, okay, you're monthly. All right.
The idea is that we're monthly.
Okay.
And I do know where it goes. I hope by issue 7, people will just be like, what the... because where we're going, literally, and you hear the word big thrown around a lot, and it doesn't say much. The scope of what... When a Red Skull, who has Xavier's brain inside of his Red Skull, when the new apocalypse shows up, and that of course will bleed out of the X-Force stuff, and you realize Kang and Ramatut's involvement at all, and you see Thor's plays a big role in all this, because Thor met Apocalypse in the 11th century, and Kang was involved with Ramatut playing some games too. And that's going to turn into something that between issue 7 and 13, I mean, it's not a book where there's any, you don't sit down and go, I don't have an idea what to do with this.
It's almost as if you have too many ideas.
A lot, and this is after having cut much. Right. This is the core of it, and working with Tom and reworking it. So yeah, we know around 2022 what happens. And the Marvel Universe will never be the same, Ron.
Well, so now seeing the Red Skull being involved in Uncanny Avengers kind of leads that I don't want to forget the fact that you are also taking over Captain America, yet another big stage. Is the events of Uncanny Avengers going to slide into Captain America at all? Are you going to use Red Skull there in both places, or?
Yes,
Yeah.
and you'll see, it's going to take a while because you want to get those trains out of the stations with very clean mandates and make everybody understand where they're going before you start hopping back and forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are definitely going to happen. And more than anything, the soap opera that begins to bubble in Cap's life will cross-pollinate between those two books quite a bit. Of course, I'm writing them, so it's like
helps.
it does. I'm like, oh well, Captain America. So yeah, there you'll see a lot of cross-pollination there, and of course, John Romita Jr. and Klaus Janson.
You pulled the names out of the hats in the Marvel Now game, and you won.
Yeah,
Between
it was
Cassidy and Romita and Jansen, like that's.
Well, when they said that it's all uncomfortable town, I was like, can I just have Tony and Jerome again? They're like, no, it's all shifting around.
Yeah.
I didn't, I worked with Romita once when I killed the Punisher, and I was like, well, I got to do that, bucket list, and getting to do this, and when you see what he's done, I mean, it's John Romita Jr. and Klaus Janson, and the pages and Dean White's on his colors on the first issue are insanity. I mean, it really is. So that book the challenge there was to do what I did with Apocalypse over in X-Force with Zola. And Zola's one of those guys you see and you're like, that's a crazy Jack Kirby thing. But that dude is like ridiculously evil. He's this biofanatic who, he's the Nazi who experiments, pulling foreheads back and growing hands. Giant ants with fleshy human faces and like, help me! and when I got into Zola, I was like, oh well, this guy isn't a B or a C-list villain.
Yeah.
And building that up with Cap, I think Zola's the big animosity in that book for a while.
Right.
And even when we're done with him, that B, it'll be an apocalypse kind of thing, and I like that.
Yeah.
I like once I give you that, I don't move on and forget about it. I think people, that's why I read Serialized, like you said, the Claremont stuff, where 15 issues later, you're like, oh, there it is. We like that stuff.
So, it's interesting because you're going from Uncanny X-Force and Venom, and now you're doing Uncanny Avengers and Captain America, where you got kind of a team book and a singular character book. What is the shift change in writing just like the lead character of Cap versus writing the team?
Well, it's I always look at the teams are so hard to write. You have flow charts. You literally have to research every character, find out where the nuances and their histories connect in interesting ways that you can exploit.
Yeah.
And it's like a Beautiful Mind style thing in my wall, when I'm just like, and this guy, but you do find that once you get it and you do your homework, the stories are hopefully good. Hopefully that. With Cap, with a single character, it's like, on Venom or Fear Agent or anything, when I'm doing a single character, you just got the one. And so the depth you go down is much deeper into that one character. And I don't want to say it's easier, but it is like when I'm done writing like X-Force, like, oh, where was Betsy? Oh, okay, no, Nightcrawler. Oh, okay, Secret Avengers. Okay, no, Captain Britain's over in the other dimension. Oh, shit, Uncanny Avengers. Oh, and then I go to Cap, I'm like, Steve Rogers. It is a much more pleasant experience in terms of like, the anxiety of doing the work, and I'm getting to the point where a lot of what we're doing in Captain America is going to show Steve Rogers growing up in the Lower East Side in the Depression era, to show how he became the 98-pound weakling who has the tenacity and the internal fortitude to insist on fighting a war, knowing full well that his physical frame, he's going to die.
Yeah.
How do you become that person? Because you're not born that person, and we take it for granted. Where Superman got it. You know how he got it. With Steve, it's not quite there. And once I realized that, I kept researching it. I couldn't find it. And I was like, oh. And I called Tom, and he's like, oh. And so then you got John Romita Jr. doing 7-year-old Steve Rogers, and he's Jack Kirby. And that gets you where you can really dig in and show the full picture of a character and get that beating heart. Whereas a team book, you try, and sometimes you hit it, but there's so many pieces.
Right. So now moving on to Uncanny Avengers and Captain America means that you have to say goodbye to Uncanny X-Force. Looking back on that project, you got to feel some pride around that, right?
Sure. Yeah. I'll feel pride once I stick the landing.
Yeah.
We'll see.
You're close. Well, you're finishing out with Phil Noto, right?
Yep.
Which is a good way to finish it out.
It is. It is. And Phil's basically been we've had a couple of great Julian Tedesco and Dave Williams, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But around 24, Phil comes on, and when I look back, I'm like, well, Phil did 24, did 27, he did 28. So Phil's been sort of our guy, which is great. There'll be some consistency, and he's a genius. So the stuff is gorgeous. It's great. Again, the anxiety on that is starting to raise because the expectations are, well, stick the landing. And if you don't stick the landing after people dig the thing that much, then you're going to have, because they'll do the omnibus, and for the rest of the history, it'll be like, I loved it until the last issue, and he fucking dropped the ball, and you don't want. And so I got to get in there, and I'm reworking that final issue right now. But there's 7 or 8 giant surprises, and I just wanted to leave Sam Humphries with I just wanted to go around with like TNT and go whoop, 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 and then there's a lot of new people and things that show up, and it's we'll see.
Well, what you've done is, I know I'm biased because of being the X-Men fan and all that sort of stuff, but you've really, in a time of not many runs, not many epic kind of thing, like Hickman on Fantastic Four, what Snyder's doing over on Batman, you on X-Force is going to be one of those omnibuses that everyone's like, oh, you've got to read this. Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah.
And again, I got to stick that landing. Yep. I'm still working on that last issue. So as of right now, if somebody's watching this in the future, they can go, you dropped the ball, douchebag. I hope not, but yeah. It's obviously very very flattering to hear that you and other people hold them in that kind of esteem.
Yeah. So also at the show, your Marvel stuff wasn't the only thing that you announced. You had an announcement at the Dynamite panel, right?
Yeah. In 2007, Paul Renaud and I pitched Nick a very pulp science fiction thing that we had cooked up. Yeah. And our schedules went crazy, and we never could get it to come together, and it's finally coming together. Yeah. So Devolution is a story about the government had used a devolution agent. There was a war in the Mideast, and they were using a devolution agent to turn enemy combatants temporarily into easily collected Neanderthals so that they could be caged and they didn't have to kill a lot of people because they were getting, the press at home was upset about all the deaths. Yeah. But of course, the devolution agent seeps into the groundwater and plans across the world, and within, a couple years, everything on Earth is not only devolving, but reverse mutating. So the entire planet is like a strange, kind of prehistoric world, but a lot of new things. And so, Paul, I don't know if you know Paul's work, but Paul is...
He did some Fear Agent, and he did...
He and Hillary Barta did a story, and we did a Red Sonja thing way back when.
That.
Paul's a genius, and he mostly been doing covers. Yeah. So this is another case of getting a guy who doesn't do a lot of interiors to come back and do it. And you'll have an exclusive cover by Paul to show, as well as some pages. So I'm really excited about it. It's the last book. There was that I don't want to say it's prolific, but there was a period between like 2004 and 2005 that I cooked up Fear Agent, Strange Girl, Nightmare, Last Days of American Crime. Devolution is the last one of that era that was never accomplished. So, we're getting to do it now with Paul, Lee Lowridge, Russ Wooten, so some of my Fear Agent guys. Covers by Jay Lee. I just got the Jay Lee cover in. It's stunning. Alex Ross, Ryan Sook, and it's just fucking insanity.
So is it going to be a mini or?
Right now it is. Yeah. I've committed to ongoings in the past, and I'm sort of neurotic where once I say it's ongoing, I'm going to we're going to keep doing it. But I'm always very very cautious in terms of that stuff. So I've got right now 5 or 6 issues to open. I've got a beginning, middle, and end. I wrote it like a screenplay. So structurally, it'll be a very satisfying read. Yep. And I'll just be blunt and mercenary about it. If people buy the shit out of it and love it, then there's a chance we'll do more. Yep. And then that's.
If not, then you have a nice story.
And that's capitalism. Yeah, And hey, and that is. And so capitalism...
It is. That's how it works, the market.
Thank you. And when people buy things, you're like, I will produce more of that for you. But if not, it's still... If everyone's like, no thanks, dick, then I will still have what I feel is a very, very strong graphic novel that can be read and enjoyed on its own with a great Twilight Zone ending that was...
Cool. So, yeah, no, it's interesting that you said this idea was from that period of '05. You've been teasing on Twitter that you've got more creator-owned stuff coming. Any update on those or any what we look out for?
You know, it's all stuff. My Marvel work has me busy, and I want to make sure that I keep a tone creator-owned, and that because I haven't for about a year and a half, and I'll be honest, it's corroded my soul, and I love the Marvel work, and I've gotten to work with a lot of my buddies and do things I'm very proud of. But in creator-owned, I just do what the fuck I want with people, and we get excited and just do it. And that's why we all enjoy doing creator-owned. So I do have things coming up. I have obviously a book with Greg Tocchini. I have a book with Phil Noto. I have a book with Tony Moore. I have a book with Jerome Opeña. And when and where they hit all depends on their commitments as well. Right. The first one out of the gate is the one with Paul Renaud. We're doing Devolution. I think the next one will be the Tocchini book. It all depends on how things land, but you know, the same group of guys, and we want to do. I know two of those will be ongoings for sure, but I don't want to say which ones yet. So we'll see.
Well, excellent. Well, you've had a hell of a year this past year, and I guess it's just going to keep on going. The treadmill's never going to stop for you. You just got to keep running.
I don't know, you know, unless all my ideas are gone and everyone's like, well, he's done. You know, at some point you do worry, like, well, when does it stop?
Well, we'll be back to talk to you when that happens, and then we can.
You're like, so you're out of ideas and you're hacking.
We'll be outside on the street while you've got a table with like all of it.
Hey, you guys want to read Scary Agent? It's about a guy who's got a heroin addiction. And he's in space, and
it's good. It's good. You've drawn it on. It's
just like with a Sharpie.
Yeah.
I just finished a new issue. I work for a chorizo for a latte. Do they make chorizo lattes?
They should. Josh, I'm on this really weird Wi-Fi signal. It's got all these really strange German industrial movies. They're all streaming right to it.
That's my Seagate Goflex satellite.
Oh, it's you.
You can keep up to 500 gigabytes of movies, music, anything you want on here, and stream it to your device with its own Wi-Fi signal.
You just get the free Seagate Goflex satellite app, and you can stream all your content to your iPad, to your Android devices, whatever you want, so you can get your German industrial movie fix.
Industrial, that's what we'll call it. I gotta remember to lock this thing.
Yeah. So it streams Wi-Fi, it's got a great battery, lasts a long time, great for road trips, right?
It's a really cool little device, and you can pretty much put anything on it, and you'll have more stuff on here than you'll ever have time to watch. It's good for kids, good for all that stuff.
Plane rides.
All of these things. And you can, if you are an iFanboy viewer, you can get 10% off. Where can they do that?
They can go to Seagate.com/iFanboy and sign up there and get 10% off buying the Seagate Goflex hard drive. And we thank them for their support of iFanboy at New York Comic Con.
It's really mostly just kids' movies.
I know. I tried to make it cooler.
I know, I'm not edgy. Sorry.
I don't want to look as bad as I looked in the other ones. That's all.
You just sit at home and cry. You're in front of the computer.
Everybody hurts. Mascara, masturbation.
Take comfort.
Peanut butter. A bong hit. More
The
masturbation.
video just going slow motion. You're watching.
Everybody